So we are now in the setup menu of Salesforce, and what we want to do is to configure Web2Ks. The first thing we need to do to configure Web2Ks is to enable Web2Ks. Now to do that, we are going to look for Web2Ks in the quick find, right there on the left navigation bar. So let's type web, and you will see that we have a few options available. We've got Web2Lead, Web2Ks, and Web2Ks HTML generator. Now Web2Lead is more for marketing purposes and it goes outside of the boundaries of this course. Here we are going to focus on Web2Ks and Web2Ks HTML generator. Now before we can generate an HTML, we need to activate Web2Ks and make sure it's configured properly. So to do that, we are going to click on Web2Ks. So the settings we need to make sure are set up is first enable Web2Ks. So we need to check that checkbox. We can also add a reCAPTCHA verification. The reCAPTCHA verification, if you know what it is like this robot detection element that you find on some websites. So we can activate one of those to make sure that spammers and robots are not sending cases through your Web2Ks form. So if you want to enable it, what you would have to do is click right there on this checkbox, and that's how you would do that. You would then have to have an API key for reCAPTCHA. We then need to specify the default case origin. You can see that by default it chooses web, which is exactly what we want. If you wanted to change the case origin to phone, email, or any other value you would have set up, that's where you would do it. You also have auto-response email settings. Now, those settings are there to enable you to send an automated reply to the person sending a case through the Web2Ks form. So here you can see that we have a response template already selected. We can hide the record information if you don't want people to see the record number in your Salesforce system, for example. And you can even add an email signature to that auto-response email. So that's the first thing we need to do when we configure Web2Ks. We need to make sure that all those settings are properly set up. So once you've done that, you can press the Save button. So the next thing we need to do is set up our default owners. The default owners are very important because they are the owners or the users that will get the case if the assignment rules you have set up cannot find a proper person to assign the case to. So those are very important because those will be your fallbacks. In order to configure them, we need to search for support settings from the quick find. From there, we will click on support settings. And here you can see that we have two default owners. We have the default case owner, which is going to be the person that will get the case if the assignment rules fail. And we have the automated case owner, which is the person that is going to do all of the automated actions on our cases. You can see a few examples here. For example, assignment rules, escalation rules, on-demand email to case, and cases that are logged in the self-service portal. So that will be the person that will show as being responsible for those actions. Here it is perfectly set up. You can see that it will assign the cases to me, and that's exactly what I want. So now that our default case owners are set up, what we need to do is generate our Web2Ks HTML. To do this, let's search for web again from the quick find, and let's click on Web2Ks HTML generator. Now from here, we will have a few things that we can set up. You can see that we can select any of the fields that are on our cases and add them to the form. Here we have the contact name, the email, the phone, subject, and description. If we wanted, we could also add the type pick list, for example. You can also choose whether this would be visible in the self-service portal or not. You need to specify a URL that the user is going to be redirected to. So here I'm going to put pluralsight.com. And then finally, like we discussed already, we can add a reCAPTCHA element to this form. Here, because I do not have an API key, I'm going to disable that feature. It will also make it easier for us to test this form. Once this is done, we click Generate. And Salesforce is going to give you HTML code that you will then be able to embed into your website. So you send that information to your webmaster and they will be able to create a form based on what Salesforce gives you here. So what I will do is I will take this code and create an HTML page from it and then show it to you so that you can see what it looks like. So I've created an HTML page with the details that Salesforce gave us from the Web2K's HTML generator. So you can see that it looks a bit ugly, and that's perfectly expected because there is no styling in place. You would need to have your webmaster actually apply CSS styling to the form and modify the form so that it fits in your global HTML template. Here, this is just for testing purposes. So what we are going to do is type information about a case that we want to submit as if it were your website. And then we are going to go into Salesforce and see how that looks like inside of the system. So I'm going to type the name of the contact, whoever that is. So Bobby Jones. His email address would be bobby.jones@globomentics.com. Phone number is 01234567 Subject is my robot is misbehaving. The robot keeps rotating on itself in the room and I can't power it off. Then we need to choose the type of the case that we are creating. So you can see that we've got a few options here. This seems to be an electronic issue. So let's select type electronic and let's press submit. And now, as you can tell, we get redirected to the Pluralsight website, which is exactly what we wanted. So let's close this tab and let's see if our case was properly added inside of Salesforce. To do that, we will access the Globomentics service console we created earlier on and press Globomentics service console. And from our cases, we are going to click on all open cases. And you can see that we have our case right there. So let's click on it. So you can see that we have the case. It's properly added with the new status, and everything we entered is in here properly. So we've got the name of the contact, the email of the contact, the type of issue, and the case origin, as well as the phone. So that's perfectly fine. From there, we'll be able to manage this case and take it to closed as soon as we have resolved it. That's how you set up Web2Ks inside of Salesforce Service Cloud. Well done! You now know how to use it.